A professional squatter in New Mexico is accused of stealing a house. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over an interesting thing that happened in New Mexico with a professional squatter. Now, I know that a lot of landlords, they're really afraid of squatters ending up in their empty houses, etc., right? And so that's exactly what happened in this case and in this article right here. But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know if you've ever dealt with squatters before in any of your properties. I know that I haven't, but that's one of my worst fears right there. So, this article, it comes from krqe.com, and it says, neighbors call woman professional squatter after moving into $500,000 home. A woman is behind bars accused of stealing a $500,000 home in Albuquerque's Four Hills neighborhood after the homeowners died. KRQE News 13 spoke with the neighbors who said when the woman moved in, crime and suspicious activity went up. There's definitely people who do not belong in there, said a neighbor who wants to remain anonymous, presenting false documents, whatever they could, to stay inside that house or to throw people off. People who live in this neighborhood in the Four Hills area don't want to show their faces or use their names for public safety. So yeah, I mean, what it sounds like is, the original owners of this house, this $500,000 house, if Albuquerque's, if their housing prices are anything like Omaha, a $500,000 house in Albuquerque is probably in a pretty decent neighborhood, okay? So these people, or whoever this was, decided they were just going to move in after the original people died. And they probably were just looking through the obituaries and looking for people who died. I mean, these are professional squatters here, and they're used to doing really, really shady stuff. So, yeah, I've heard about people like this before, but man, I mean, I certainly don't want to have to deal with them. They're referring to 35-year-old Lucia Ruiz, calling her and the others living inside this home professional squatters. They definitely seem to be dotting their I's and crossing their T's, said another anonymous neighbor. Neighbors said people have been in and out of the house for months after the owners died. Documents, said Ruiz, a convicted felon, even listed the home as her address for probation. So when she violated her probation about a week ago, officers paid her a visit, and that's when neighbors told police Ruiz and the others inside were not allowed to be there. Wow. Okay, so it looks like she just moved on in, claims that this is her house, and, even the neighbors know that, hey, yeah, this lady, she shouldn't be up in here. And she's a convicted felon. I don't know what she's convicted of, but it sounds like she is not the kind of person who would even be able to rent such a home. Documents, said Ruiz, showed officers a lease agreement, which she said was renting the property from the former owner's daughter, whose signature was on the paper, as well as pulling out a quitclaim deed transferring ownership of the house to Ruiz. Investigators found that Ruiz filed that deed with the county, and the fraudulent document showed the owner signed over the $500,000 house to Ruiz for just $1. Wow. Okay. Now that is a hell of a fraud. Now, I've heard of companies that, provide, some sort of title fraud insurance, but I've never actually heard of a case where people actually were able to file the deed and get that house turned over to their ownership. Now, I mean, it should be pretty easy to prove that these people were scammers, but man, I mean, that is my worst fear right there, that somebody is able to somehow steal one of my properties out from underneath me by filing false paperwork. However, the daughter of the former owners told investigators it's all a lie, telling them she did not sign any rental or deed agreement with anyone and that no one had permission to live inside the home. Neighbors said this is just the start of what's been going on at the home. Neighbor surveillance video captured someone screaming for help on the night of July 31st, running out of the problem house. "I can't breathe," said one person on the surveillance video. "I understand that, bro," said another person on the surveillance video. It's unclear who is speaking in the video, but that next morning, neighbors found 34-year-old Samuel Hernandez's body just 100 feet from that home. My God, okay. So they're doing some sort of criminal activity in that house. And now we got a dead body coming out of a $500,000 home. They file fraudulent paperwork to take ownership of the home, moved in. These are the worst type of squatters I've even read about. I mean, it sound like druggies. I don't know if it was a drug overdose or what killed this person, but man, I mean, God, what do you have to do to get rid of people like this? This is not just a homeless element, but there is definitely a criminal element that's going on. It's palpable, said a neighbor. You can sense what's going on over there is not kosher at all. Neighbors said they're now looking into hiring their own private security to patrol the area. Ruiz, who also goes by Lucia Candelaria and Lucia Martinez, has a criminal history that includes car theft and shoplifting. She is charged with forgery and fraud in this case. Police are still investigating Hernandez's death. Wow. Okay, so hopefully, the police, they get everything figured out. This lady whose parents used to own the house, I hope that she's able to get, all the paperwork, everything figured out. I hope this lady goes to jail. And I hope that this person who died wasn't murdered or something at the property. I mean, I feel bad for the neighbors, but I feel worse for the property owner who basically had these people destroy her house, take her parents' property from her, and they obviously were just a bunch of druggy criminals who were squatting in that house. So yeah, as a landlord, that is one of the worst case scenarios, especially when you have an empty rental property in a area that is not so nice. But this sounds like it was a nice area. This doesn't sound like the typical kind of place where this sort of thing would happen, where you got a bunch of homeless squatters moving in and just taking everything over.